Welcome to OPA LIVE, everyone. This is Maurice Fernandez leading this session today for the Organization for Professional Astrology. And we have wonderful guests today, David Cochrane, Oner, Arielle Guttman, Kay Taylor, and of course, Melanie Pepper, who is going to be our client. So as you probably already know by now, 4 astrologers are going to use different techniques, different approaches to astrology to analyze the same chart. And this is not a competition, it's a learning experience. So our purpose really is to highlight those differences and to show how perhaps different systems can lead to the same point, or perhaps different, highlight different perspectives in the natal chart. Sometimes, a system can focus on certain aspect of personality and personal development, and others will highlight different details. So it's all enriching, and it's highlighting the fact that no one has a perfect system, and yet every system is very rich in and of itself. This also will probably include, different house system, different orbs used for aspects and whatnot. And we would like to hear from every presenter what their choice of what they are highlighting, if they can, they will introduce us to their technique as well. Now, I just want to highlight the fact that none of the presenters know Melanie. She's not a client of anyone, so this is the first time they're actually meeting her. They do know that, obviously, they know her chart, and they know that she works as a herbalist. Can you?
Yeah, I run a horticultural therapy program at a juvenile detention center.
And juvenile detention center, is it related, or is it something that's not related to the therapies?
The idea is that there's a garden program, and I'm working with youth, bringing them outside in a facility where otherwise they're incarcerated.
And they also know that you're not in a relationship, if I remember well. And if you had specific questions, did you ask specific questions to?
I didn't ask any specific questions.
Okay, so we're just going to look at the chart, and each presenter will show the chart they're using. We don't want to use just, we don't want OPA to use a chart, because part of the learning experience is to see what each astrologer is going to put in their chart, what asteroid, how it's going to look from their side. So before I introduce everyone, and each one in particular, I also want to introduce OPA, what we're doing. We're very happy, to help astrologers from all different levels of expertise. We've just started a beginners program that you can study astrology in 12 sessions. So review the fundamentals of astrology. And we also have programs for more advanced and for professional astrology. And particularly, we're really excited about our event, the OPA retreat next year in Zion National Park in Utah. So it consists of 2 parts. The first part has 13 tracks that you can choose from, even though one of them is already sold out and 2 others are really close to selling out. Aside from the tracks, you're going to have short lectures about science and spirituality in astrology, including the draconic chart, spiritual significators in the chart, research astrology. So all these short talks are going to be attended by the whole audience. And we're also going to have a panel addressing arguments about astrology, because at OPA we feel it's very important to be informed what's going on in the world, how people view astrology, and for astrologers to develop critical thinking, to actually hear what the criticism is about, to know, whether the critics have a point or whether it's pure ignorance. And if it is ignorance, then we should even know about that. So an amazing experience. Part two focuses on peer group, which is for professional practicing astrologers, polishing your consulting skills, because knowing astrology is not enough to be an astrologer. You need to know how to unpack a chart and deliver the information in a way that's effective, not harmful, and helpful. And then a whole section on astronomy for astrologers, which is really an exciting introduction and helping astrologers return to nature, return to look at the sky, and not only focus on a piece of paper or a screen. So it's in Zion National Park, can't go wrong there. If you are, if you need time out and you need to meditate, you'll have the gods of the mountains with you. And obviously this is also a perfect venue for astronomy and looking at the night sky, exploring the stars. But back to our program, we are going to start with David Cochrane. And David, you are the founder of Cosmic Pattern Software, which include amazing software. Sirius is the most advanced and the most comprehensive software, Kepler software, and Pegasus. So you will be presenting the chart analysis from a vibrational astrology point of view. And is this a book that's available? People can purchase it if they are interested.
One of my colleagues, vibrational astrologer Linda Berry, has written a book. I've written 2 books years ago, and I will be having another book come out by early next year, and there'll probably be 2 or 3 books on vibrational astrology coming out within the next year and a half or so. The main thing I have are the videos also, the YouTube videos, which are free.
Okay. And so each presenter has picked a card, a constellation card, and you are Hercules. So we look forward to that. I will also introduce the other speakers before we return to you and your, and get started. Arielle Guttman is currently in Athens, but she is currently living in California, if I'm not mistaken. And she will be presenting about the Venus star point. And her book, The Venus Star Point, highlights these techniques and goes into the great depth of describing the whole process. So we're really excited to hear about this perspective. Arielle, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello. Actually, I'm not living in California anymore. I'm back in Santa Fe, New Mexico, my hometown of about 30 years. I just took a brief hiatus to California for a few years to be with my family and my mother, but now that is over and I'm back in New Mexico. But now I'm in Athens, Greece. I'm loving it. And I tend to go to Greece about once a year for about 2 or 3 months at a time.
And you're leading groups in Greece as well, correct? Oops. Are you leading groups
yes, I
in
was
Greece?
at that Lent contest Angela Tiki led, and I'm co-leading groups in Greece. I have a tour next year, and that's the reason, unfortunately, I won't be in Zion with you at OPA, because we're doing a tour at exactly the same time in April and May, late April, early May of next year. We're leading a small tour through Greece. Alexandra Karakostas and myself. And we partnered, we did this once before in June of 2018. And it was a very successful group. Almost half the people said they wanted to come back and do it again with us. So
wonderful. So check it out. Is it on your website?
yes, I have everything. I have a monthly Venus blog that I do and a newsletter. And then on my events page, all the events are listed.
So Arielle, there's just a comment that your voice is very faint. I can hear you well, but I will ask all the audience to boost your volume also on your own computers, in case you need to adjust that. But if you could perhaps speak a little closer to the mic during and project
Okay.
maybe.
Okay, maybe move myself closer to my computer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we will proceed to Oner. Thank you, Oner, for joining us. Oner is a very respected and successful astrologer in Turkey, leading a school, writing, I don't know how many books, but many books. And these are two of his books that have been translated to English. One of them is financial significators in the chart, and the other one is about prediction techniques. It's a wonderful book that I really recommend. Very clear, and it's going to highlight the technique that he's going to use this time, which is traditional astrology, mostly as we understand it. Oner?
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, by the way. And yes, I have some other books in Turkish, over 20 actually. And now they are one by one translated into English. And I have 3 books on Amazon available at the moment: Professional Significators, Financial Significators, and Astrological Prediction. A book on horary is on the way. Benjamin Dykes, my editor, is editing it at the moment. And one by one, the others are coming, hopefully very soon. And of course, I'm practicing traditional astrology, but as you know very well, I'm trying to blend traditional techniques with the modern one, which is a very important task for myself, which I put it on me. So in my books, you can see that I'm trying to combine traditional techniques with the modern ones.
Thank you. And you will be presenting at the OPA retreat on horary astrology as well.
Yeah, I'm practicing it since many years, and really it is one of the most valuable predictive techniques of astrology, and it will be fun to be there and to be presenting it, of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Kay, thank you for joining us from California. Kay Taylor is the educational director for OPA and is a very respected, loved astrologer around the world and in her own community. She's the author of Soul Pathway. And Kay will be presenting about evolutionary astrology and a more modern approach to astrology. So we look forward to that, Kay.
Thank you, Maurice. I'm really delighted to be here today.
Wonderful. So let's get started. I am going to unshare my screen and have David take over. Hercules.
Okay.
So let's all mute ourselves.
Okay, so am I loud and clear, and do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I will start into this. By the way, all I can see right now is my screen, so Maurice, if there are any comments along the way, you can let me know. That seemed very important to address right away. Okay, so I've got a screen up here telling us what we're doing, and I assume my volume is good. Everybody can confirm that. Vibrational astrology. And I'm going to give a brief introduction to VA, obviously the abbreviation for vibrational astrology, and do a little chart reading for Melanie. Okay, let's see here. Okay, number one, a very important thing in VA are minor aspects. So we consider minor aspects to have major impact. So you might say minor aspect is a misnomer from the point of view of vibrational astrology. So what do we mean by minor aspect? We take fifths, sevenths, ninths of a circle. You've probably heard about these things. And we'll even take 11ths of a circle, 13ths, 17ths, all kinds of different fractions. And we think they're very important. So for example, on the left here, I have Melanie's birth chart. And you'll see I've got in red here, pointing from Neptune to Pluto, an arrow because Pluto's in the middle of Neptune and the moon. And it's 2/13 of a circle. So Pluto is 2/13 of a circle from the moon, and it's 2/13 of a circle from Neptune, and therefore the distance from moon to Neptune is 4/13. Now this is something that very few astrologers currently use, this idea that planets separated by 13ths of a circle is important, but this is why we call it vibrational astrology, because we believe that moon, Pluto and Neptune in this case are vibrating to 13. It's like a musical signature that's got 13 beats to it. And so you could say that moon, Pluto, and Neptune are on a 13 vibration. So this is one of the things that's very different about vibrational astrology from most systems of astrology. Now, number two, another thing that's very important in VA are midpoint structures. And many of you are probably familiar with midpoint structures. They are used in other systems of astrology as well. And a midpoint structure occurs when a planet is at a midpoint. Well, midpoint just means halfway in between two planets. So halfway in between moon and Neptune obviously is Pluto, because it's 2/13 of a circle from each one. So this planetary configuration in Melanie's chart of moon, Pluto, and Neptune is, you could say, doubly important. It's very, very important because all three planets are in the 13 vibration, and it's a midpoint structure. So it's both a midpoint structure and it's on a clear 13 vibration. So it's a very important planetary configuration from the point of view of vibrational astrology. And later I will talk about what it means. Third point I want to make, and this is the last of my three introductory points about how vibrational astrology works, is we use something called harmonic charts. And probably a lot of you have heard about harmonic charts. Maybe you don't know exactly how to use them. Maybe you do. We also refer to them as vibrational charts. So I may call it a vibrational chart or a harmonic chart interchangeably. And they are very important in VA. And one of the reasons why they are important is that you can do a harmonic chart for any vibration. So on the left here, we see the 13 vibration chart for Melanie. So you can do a 7 vibration chart, 9 vibration, any vibration you want. And what the 13 vibration chart does is it takes the planets that are in 13 vibration and makes them conjunct. And one of the beautiful things about this is you can see the orbs. You can see that Moon and Pluto are both at 24 degrees of Gemini in this vibrational chart. This means they are in a very strong 13 vibration. Neptune is over at 2 degrees Cancer. That's about 8 degrees away. It's weaker. But we use large orbs in these vibrational charts, and there is a Moon, Pluto, Neptune configuration. So we look at vibrational charts in order to see the vibrational patterns. And we also look at other aspects like squares and oppositions and trines like we normally use, and we look at them in vibrational charts. So those are the three points to know about vibrational astrology. We use, number one, we use minor aspects, all kinds of minor aspects, hundreds of them. And that might seem overwhelming, but we found a way to make it very simple. In fact, vibrational astrology in some ways is simpler than other forms because the rules are very clear. There's not a lot of ambiguity about what to do, how to interpret things. So we look at minor aspects, number one. Number two, we look at midpoint structures. And number three, we often look at harmonic charts to see the patterns. Okay, so I wanted to give you an idea of what vibrational astrology is. Now, on the next slide, I'm going to tell you what this pattern in Melanie's chart means, because that's what we want to know. What, is this vibrational astrology useful? What is it going to tell us? And normally I would have a dialogue with the client and I would draw things out of the client, and I use the astrology to help the client through dialogue. However, if I start having dialogue with Melanie, I think it's going to spoil things for my next three colleagues. So I'm going to ask you, Melanie, to not say a whole lot, just so that we can leave this, you might say, kind of untouched. At the end, I think we're going to have time to review everything. If you want to say a little bit, that's fine. But it's also okay if you don't say anything, and I'll just demonstrate the interpretation. Now we can get feedback later. Okay, so what does this Moon, Neptune, Pluto mean? Here's the interpretation. And we all four of us wrote articles for a future version of the OPA journal. And this is quoted right out of the article. So here it is. I'm just going to read it to you. And later, Melanie, you can tell us if you relate to this. Melanie has a need for meditation and to experience deeper moods. Let me interrupt a little bit. Meditation, deeper moods, because it's Moon, Neptune. Moon has to do with depth of feeling. Okay, let me continue. She needs an ambiance, feeling, and environment that is uplifting and transformative. Living in the normal daily routine of life with the usual daily experiences and inputs that we get, especially in a modern Western culture, is not adequately satisfying and fulfilling on a deep emotional level and leaves her feeling like something is missing. I'm going to interrupt again. I'm bringing into this the 13 vibration. 13 seeks something special. It seeks to not be lost in mediocrity. It's like looking for a gem in life, not egotistically, not to prop oneself up, but just because they feel like life should be special. So you can see how I'm incorporating that into the interpretation. So then I give some concrete examples of what she might do. Setting the mood with candles, fragrances, soft lighting, or the magic of an evening where freshness of flowers or fresh breezes are important. At some point in her life, sacred spaces or meditation, chanting, or other similar experiences to feel transformation and transcendence are natural for you. Now, she's not elderly, so she was born in 1991. Some of these things may continue to develop in the future in her life. Okay, so I've given you an introduction to some of the basic concepts of vibrational astrology, and I've given you an idea. Obviously, in a half hour, we're not going to master a whole system of astrology, but I think you're starting to get the idea. And, go ahead.
David,
go ahead,
I will ask perhaps here and there some questions just to make it clear for the audience.
Certainly.
When you speak of the 13th harmonic, is there a reason why the 13th harmonic relates to that special gem?
Right.
Is that something that's part of the body of knowledge to understand how each minor aspect is going to represent something?
Right, good question. So two things. We tend to use the word vibration instead of harmonic. It's fine to use the word harmonic. I think the word harmonic is confusing because it can make people think about some complex harmonies or something. And it's really simpler than that, just a vibration. I just wanted to mention that it's not that important. The meanings of the vibrations are very well established in vibrational astrology. We have a group of a dozen or 24 vibrational astrologers who are deeply trained and practice vibrational astrology. And there isn't any significant disagreement among the vibrational astrology community. It's verified through practice and experience. We also verify it through research studies where we go through the database. We find people have the most 13 vibration and see what they're like. So the research that we do, the personal experiences that we have, all confirm each other. And we have regular research meetings and we refine and perfect the interpretations. But there isn't any doubt among the vibrational astrologers about these basic ideas.
Thank you.
All right.
There's a question about orb, what orb is given for the vibration.
Yeah, the orbs are seen in the vibrational chart. We use, or harmonic chart you can call it, and you will see the orbs there. I really don't want to get too technical about orbs because we're going to get lost in the trees and miss the forest. So I can come back to that later. And it gets a little nerdy. I don't want to get that nerdy right now in a half hour. So sorry about that, but we can talk about our orbs some other time. I'm going to give you my email address at the end for additional questions. Okay. Now, another thing, where the heck does vibrational astrology come from? So let me just take a few minutes to tell you about some of the history of vibrational astrology, and then I'm going to tell you about 6 other themes in Melanie's chart. So I've identified 7 themes. A theme is a planetary configuration. We do use houses in the house placements. We do use zodiac signs in vibrational astrology, but to see what the person's basic motivation is, talent, drives, we look first to the planetary configurations. So I've described one of them. I'll describe the other 6. But first, let me tell you a little bit about where VA comes from. Well, one idea, the first idea I told you about in VA is that we have minor aspects. And minor aspects are credited to Johannes Kepler. That Kepler introduced minor aspects in a booklet called On the More Certain Fundamentals of Astrology, published in 1601. So at some point you can Google it. It's a small booklet, and he introduces this idea of taking other fractions of a circle in addition to 1/2, which is an opposition, or 1/3, which is a trine, or 1/4 is a square. So some people say that vibrational astrology and harmonic astrology started with Kepler. However, I think that's highly inaccurate. The harmonic chart is the essential tool we use for interpretation. Or as I said, we can call it vibration chart. The 9 vibration chart, known as a Navamsa chart in Vedic astrology. So they use the 9 vibration chart. They have a special name for it. They call it the Navamsa chart. It's mentioned 289 times in a book called the Yavana Jataka. The Yavana Jataka also describes the 7 vibration chart, the harmonic chart. They call it a Saptamsa chart. And by the way, they also describe decanates, Dwadasamsas, and other divisions. The Yavana Jataka, according to some sources, there's some debate about this, was translated from Greek to Sanskrit around the year 150 AD, right at the same time the Tetrabiblos was being written by Ptolemy. This is ancient. So these harmonic charts, which show you when planets are multiples of 40 degrees, or 1/7 of 40 degrees is 1/9, or multiples of 1/7, these vibrational patterns have been analyzed all the way back. So it's an ancient tradition, and part of it is used today in Vedic astrology. Okay, some of the ideas. Also, there are discussions of dividing the sky into other divisions other than 12 in the Rig Veda, which best approximations are it was written between 1500 and 1200 BC, And the Rig Veda talks about dividing the sky into 12, 5, even 720 sections. Now I'm just going to go through this quickly. John Addy, some of you may have heard of him, developed the idea of minor aspects in great detail. He did a lot of research, and he called his system of astrology harmonic astrology. And vibrational astrology uses some ideas from harmonic astrology, some ideas from midpoint theory, some ideas from modern psychological astrology, such as from Dane Rudhyar, and some new ideas and ideas from physics, and it integrates all these into a different system. And the harmonic astrologers are happy that we're calling what we do vibrational astrology to distinguish it. So everybody's supporting this idea that it needs its own name because it is different in many ways from the ideas developed by Addy and continued by some other astrologers. Now, midpoints were used by Guido Bonatti, who lived in the 1200s. So that's the first extensive use of midpoints that I've been able to find. And you do see midpoints appear periodically in Vedic astrology. There's something called the Bhrigu Bindu, which is one particular midpoint between the North Node and the Moon. And I haven't been able to determine when that was introduced. So that's some of the more ancient history behind vibrational astrology. In more modern times, in the 1970s, I interviewed over 10,000 people. And from those interviews, developed my ideas of what seemed to work in astrology. And from that, developed new interpretations of zodiac signs, new ideas of exactly what the planets do. And in the last 10 years, this is very new, we've done more extensive research using databases and research tools to confirm, and it confirms what we experience with our experience, seeing clients and working with people. And then we gave it the new name, Vibrational Astrology. If you want to learn more vibrational astrology, Clarissa Dolphin at siderealsoul.com and Linda Berry at astrosleuth.org teach online classes. There are also a group of people developing a certification program, an association of vibrational astrologers. I've made 330 videos, about 100 have information on VA. There is an annual VA conference, and we're going to do a special thank you to Maurice for inviting me in here and to support OPA. We had a cutoff for this crazy low price of $225 for the next conference, which is in late March. That cutoff has ended. But if you want to sneak in late, if you mention that you were at this presentation, we'll give you that $225 price. When you register, just mention that you attended this, and you'll have till Wednesday. Anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Maurice. And now, I've given you an introduction to what VA is. I've given you an idea of how the interpretation is done, and I've given you some idea of where VA comes from. I thought what I would do next is tell you about the other 6 themes in her chart. Before I do, Maurice, is there anything else we want to?
No, I think that's wonderful. Yeah, if we can explore that further with Melanie's chart, that would be great.
Great. How many more minutes do I have? I'm
about 15.
About 15. Okay.
12, 15.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. Let's look at these other patterns. Okay. Later, Melanie can give us feedback. This is not the way I like to do. I don't like to do readings. I like to consult people and empower them.
Okay. You can ask some questions. You can ask some feedback. That's fine.
Okay. Well, let me just read this. I set this up to just do it as a reading. So I'm just going to tell you what I saw. In her 8 vibration chart, let me show you. I'll go into the Sirius software here, pull up her 8 vibration chart. You'll see that Sun and Saturn are near the bottom of the chart, only a half a degree away from each other. That's extremely strong. Well, I will mention something about orbs. We allow 16 degrees, might sound ridiculously large, for conjunctions. These are only 1 degree apart. This is the 8, again, the 8 vibration chart. And you'll see some red lines going to Neptune. And you'll also see that Jupiter and Neptune are conjunct with a 2 degree orb, and they are square. This red shows a square to Pluto. This is all in the 8 vibration chart. The 8 vibration chart is the basic motivation and drive of the person. It tells me more about the drive of the person than the natal chart does. And I see that Melanie is fundamentally a Jupiter-Neptune-Pluto person, Jupiter-Neptune conjunct square Pluto. She's also a Sun-Saturn-Neptune person. So these are 2 configurations that share the planet Neptune. Well, I'm not going to teach you all the details of vibrational astrology in a half hour, but you can see that mostly what we do is we look at pretty pictures. I mean, we pull up harmonic charts, we just look at the pretty lines. And so what does it mean? Here's the interpretation. And you guys know what the planets mean, and you can get some, idea of how we come up with this. In Melanie's 8 vibration chart, there's a tight Sun-Saturn conjunction and hard aspect to Neptune, which gives, here's the meaning, sincerity and a need to do something of real importance in the world. So just a lot of fluff and just making a lot of money and things like that is not enough when you have Sun-Saturn Neptune. It also makes a person highly responsible. Also, the Jupiter-Neptune-Pluto configuration inclines a person to expansiveness. We're going to see this theme of expansiveness show up again in the 11 vibration chart, where there's a Sun, Jupiter, Saturn. And in fact, Melanie might wonder why she doesn't have more Sagittarius in her chart, because she's got this expansive quality, big Jupiter energy showing up in her 8 vibration and 11 vibration. And in bold at the bottom, the last thing I mentioned here is that Melanie is likely to step outside the lifestyle, habits, and customs that you grew up with, and you will reinvent yourself to some extent. So in vibrational astrology, we try to make fairly specific expectations to see if the interpretation is correct. I'll show you the 11 vibration chart, and you'll see that there's a T-square. Sun and Jupiter are opposition. Well, we all know Sun and Jupiter makes you very Jupiterian. The 11 vibration is the vibration of restlessness, needing to be on the move. When you have Jupiter strong, in other words, a strong aspect to the Sun, in 11 vibration, even though she's sincere, and we're going to see she has a strong introverted side, she's not going to stay in some very small, confined place or live out in a small town in the middle of the Midwest. She likes to rock and roll. She likes to grow and move, and she doesn't like stagnation. And her Venus is square all this, so she's a little bit bubbly and fun. Okay, we can get feedback later. I'm going to just go through these 7 themes. Third theme. Oh, this one's beautiful. This is a beautiful pattern, and it relates to the one and only thing that I really know about her, which is this therapeutic garden program for incarcerated youth. It sounds beautiful when I hear it. When I see the planetary configuration, it's beautiful. And, my message to Melanie is keep doing what you do, because this is probably even more important and more beautiful than you realize. And where I see this is in her 9 vibration chart. 9 vibration chart is very important. It's been used in, as I mentioned, in Vedic astrology for 2,000 years. Every Vedic astrologer pulls up your 9 vibration chart. And you'll see these 2 quincunxes. There's 2 brown lines. Saturn is quincunx Neptune. And see, it's a fat line because that means the aspect is almost exact. It's virtually exact. It's a 5-minute orb. And another fat quincunx. The line also very, very thick. The orb on this is 3 minutes. Well, 3 minutes, 5-minute orbs in vibrational astrology are like, you just consider them to be exact. And when you get 2 of the same aspect in a vibrational chart, the whole system resonates. This is getting a little advanced, but the basic point is that she has a Moon, Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, very strong 9 vibration. It actually relates to the number 108. I won't go into, because it's 9 times 12. I won't go into technical details. But what I wrote about it in the article for the OPA Journal is a beautiful and impressive planetary configuration is the planets Saturn and Neptune, and also Moon and Jupiter resonating in the 108 vibration. I can't explain all the technical parts of this, but it will show up as a 108 vibration configuration. So the combination Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune symbolically is the priest or priestess. So her work with the Therapeutic Garden Program for Incarcerated Youth is an expression of this planetary configuration. Okay, so that's where I see that come from. 9 is the vibration of integration, wholeness, and healing. It's the Great Mother. It's where we feel nurtured, connected, and supported. And with this priestess configuration in there, and not being a person to just sit back all the time, as I mentioned before, she's gone out and developed and gotten involved in a program like this. She's probably, you might say, proud of it. I don't mean in an egotistical way, and she should be. Okay, I've got 3 more patterns I'm going to mention. And this gives you a good idea of what we do in vibrational astrology. We see different themes, like maybe you love music, maybe you love psychology, maybe you're hyperactive, and we can be complicated. We can have contradictory things going on. And she has a very strong 13 vibration, as I've mentioned. And when you look at her 13 vibration chart, which we'll pull up, here's the moon, Neptune, Pluto that I talked about. But look at all of the red lines, hard aspects. The sun is square moon, Pluto. A Venus-Uranus conjunction under ½ a degree. Venus-Uranus has to do with rhythm, excitement, music, dance, and sexuality. The Venus-Uranus is connected to Saturn and the Moon-Pluto conjunction, which is very tight. We all know that Moon-Pluto is difficult, deep things coming from the unconscious, just coming out, karmic kinds of things. So we have Venus, Uranus, Saturn, Moon, Pluto, Sun. It's a huge configuration. What does it mean? Okay, an area, I didn't put this in bold, but I'm going to start reading from here. Whoops, that didn't work. I'll start reading almost halfway through. An area in life in which some finesse is needed to manage some tricky issues as romance and sexuality. There is a need for something intense and transformative, right, Moon Pluto, in a romantic sexual relationship, Venus Uranus, and also a desire for something special, 13 vibration. Dissatisfaction with partners with average or compromised spiritual aspirations, involvement with a person, that's a problem. She can't handle being with somebody who just doesn't have some high special aspirations or talents. She might get involved with people of great stature, or perhaps a kind of guru, or be put in the guru role herself. Okay.
Now, David, let's actually hear a little bit from Melanie so that it's
okay.
There's a little more
yes. Good
resonance. Melanie, are you there?
I'm here.
So just to, a few quick words about what you feel about.
Yeah, so Melanie, does any of this make any sense to you?
Of
that
course.
I've gone through?
Yeah, there's definitely some resonance there. Particularly at the beginning when you were talking about needing special environments. Like, yeah, I light candles every night. My house is full of flowers all the time. I also work in gardens a lot, so that helps. It's super interesting hearing your perspective on vibrational astrology in relation to my chart, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let me say a few more things and I'll try to get a little more feedback. I know we're running out of time, but let me just say a few more things. The 91 vibration, I won't go into the details because we're running out of time. The use of music, dance, and sound as part of a spiritual path are likely. The potential for involvement in chanting or musical discipline to connect with a strong spiritual lineage and spiritual path is strong. This may show up later in life. She's what, 30 years old or something? Under 30. At
20.
a minimum, 20 what?
28.
28, right. At a minimum, going beyond casual, I guess I have a typo there, casual listening to music to dive deep into the effects of sound and rhythm is a good path for Melanie. I don't know, are you involved with music or dance or sound?
Music has always been a big part of my life. I've sung my whole life, and whether it's myself or with my siblings or with my friends. It's very central.
Right, right. And you have a 25 vibration pattern. I'm just going to mention these briefly. You need to pour your heart into things. Even things as simple as cooking a creative meal. You have to just pour your heart and creativity into things, not just, pour things out of a can or something. Just that sense of creativity is very important. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
And the last thing is you do have an introverted side as well. And you might say a scholastic side. So I suspect you have at least a bachelor's degree, although you never know. But meditation, esotericism, and discipline are important. Pursuit of astrology and/or sacred geometry is almost inevitable. So that may not have started yet with all these other things going on. Melanie also has a great capacity for practice and athletics. So you have, this expansive side, but it's not like you're, restless all the time. You read, you focus, you can discipline, you can be quiet. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, you have both sides. That's why people can be complex. When it's time to be an extrovert, you're an extrovert. When it's an introvert, you're an introvert. So you're not like in one of those boxes. So do you want to say any last things? I know I'm running out of time here. Any feedback? Does this really like click deep, or is there anything that
it's interesting that you say some of these things will be cultivated over time, because there are definitely themes that have been growing for me over the last number of years. And I kind of want to, I'll speak more at the end after everyone's presented as well. But there's definitely some resonance, and pursuit of astrology being inevitable, that resonates for sure. That's been a growing love throughout my whole life. Music has always been there. The intention that I bring into my life, whether, again, like cooking or candles, there's definitely a way in which I walk through the world that I've had reflected back to me as, like treating life as special.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Well, last thing I'm going to say, and I don't want to, overstay my time here. So I just want to say that this is what we hope to do in vibrational astrology, is identify actual behaviors, actual motivations. She does sing, the music's important, etc. That, and all the other things. And if we dive deeper into it, I think we would see that it relates not just on a vague psychological level, but on a terms of behavior, talent, and motivation. Okay, I think, Maurice, my time's probably up.
Oh.
Maurice, are you there?
Yes, sorry, I was muted.
Oh, okay.
So yes, thank you very much, David. And I want to remind everyone that all the presenters have also submitted a written analysis of the chart, which will be available in the September 2019 edition of the Career Astrologer, the OPA magazine. So that will complement, or at least help you read more slowly and reiterate some of the points here. And as David was mentioning, some people have questions about the technique. I think it would be best for them to, email you directly. And
let me just interrupt, Maurice. I forgot this last slide. So there's my email address, davidc@astrosoftware.com. I get overloaded with emails. Sometimes I'm slow to respond. You can also email Kepler@astrosoftware.com, and they will forward it to me. So I had forgotten that last slide.
Thank you so much. And we are ready now for Arielle, who is Eridanus, the river flowing. That's the constellation that Arielle chose. And different cultures saw that constellation from different angles. The Egyptians saw it as the Nile. the Romans saw it as, you know, another, the River Po, and the Chinese as the Yellow River. So there's something about the merging of many culture, and it's also very close to Apollo. So I think these constellations are quite symbolic. Arielle, you are muted, and I will not speak a lot because it seems like our volume is very different. So I will let people increase their volume when you start speaking, and you can start sharing your slides as well.
I do relate to that river, that constellation. It's also near my ascendant, and also I have a lot of water in my chart, and so that great river is really a metaphor for how I feel and how I kind of flow through life. My life tends to flow like the river, so with the different currents and so forth. Well, I'm very happy to be part of this OPA Live panel. Thank you, Maurice, for inviting me. And thank you, Melanie, for being here on such a public platform to have all these astrologers look so deeply into the intimacy of your chart and your life. And I'm saying this because you have a lot of 8th house planets and 12th house planets, and I feel that's a very private, there's a lot of things about you that are very private, and yet here we are. And so thanks for being open to this. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go to my PowerPoint, and I'm going to go to the slideshow from beginning. Here we go. Okay, can everybody see that now, and can you hear me well?
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Okay, good. So Melanie, I'm going to be discussing your chart through the lens of the Venus star points. Now, this is a fairly new technique for astrology and astrologers. Not everybody knows what this is all about. And I will give a little background, as David did to vibrational astrology, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on how it works and the mechanics of the star. That's another whole workshop, material for a workshop. But basically, this pattern you're looking at right now, this beautiful mandala that you're looking at on the screen, is 8 orbits of the Earth and Venus around the sun. And you can see in the middle, where my pointer is, that it makes this beautiful 5-petaled flower. The ancients called Venus the rose. They knew about her pentagonal orbit. The Mayans called her, had the 5 seasonal risings of Venus. The ancient Greeks talked about Venus and harmony, divine harmony. And this orbit is actually the 1.6 or 5 relationship, which is also in art and design and architecture and photography and everything like that, is the golden mean, what we call the golden mean or the golden section, which is supposed to be, the most pleasing and beautiful and harmonious visual application that we have in life. And so Venus, our little Venus, our sister planet to Earth, does this with Earth. Every time she conjuncts the sun from Earth, there's a lineup, and it's the star points are made from this 1.6 pattern. So this is what I'm going to be using for my interpretation. So, whoops. What did I do? Okay, I want to get to the next slide. Okay, why isn't it moving? Okay, so this is how it works against the zodiac. Now, everybody thinks there's a 5-pointed star in an 8-year period, and that is true from one perspective. That's only if you're taking the retrogrades of Venus, which create the morning star pattern. But if you look at the evening star as well, you get 2 full stars in an 8-year period. So this is quite an interesting star. And these are the positions of where it pretty much is right now. Gemini, middle degrees of Gemini, 21 Leo, about 3 to 0 Scorpio, 18 Capricorn, and about 5 degrees Aries. So these are really hot Venus degrees in this whole 8-year pentagram of our life right now. These are degrees that are hitting all of our charts in a very focused way. And the Venus star energy, it's not a mind energy. It's not something that we think of intellectually. Do I make this decision in life, or do I make that decision in life? The Venus star point is actually something that comes from the heart. It's something that comes from a very deep feeling of knowing. The mind can play tricks on us. We can talk ourselves into, is this the right person for me? Is this the right job for me? Is this the right place for me to go right now? Sometimes we don't really know, and so our mind has to go back and forth. But it doesn't always give us the truth of the situation. It's sort of like when we use our mind to make certain decisions, we're taking a risk that it will turn out. But if we use our heart to make a decision, like it really resonates fully within our body, and we get a resounding yes, and we just know this is what I need to do next, there's no denying that. There's no way that that can be a wrong decision for you. So I'm seeing how these Venus star points work in my life and the lives of all the people that I'm looking at using this method, is that it is a very heart-based system. And furthermore, the Venus star and this 1.6 relationship of Phi relates to synchronicity. And I think that when the Venus star point transits an important point in your natal chart, or when a planet transits your Venus star point, for instance, either way, either way, it's a perfect moment of synchronicity. Things really line up. And I especially see this with the nodal axis. The nodal axis is like the, let's call it the purpose. We call it a purpose in life. And I think the Venus star point is the passion of life. And so when the nodal axis somehow intersects with the Venus star points, it's when purpose and passion meet. And in that meeting, it's like anything is possible.
So Arielle, just a quick clarification. I just want to emphasize for those who are completely new to this system that the star is made through the conjunction of Venus to the Sun in the sky. And so Venus and the Sun conjunct at very specific points repeatedly to create this 5-pointed star. And the conjunction can be when Venus is direct or when Venus is retrograde.
Yes, exactly, Maurice. And that's why I have 2 stars in this diagram here, because the full set of pink stars is 1 full morning star set, or let's say when it was retrograde, conjunction, the interior conjunction of Venus and the Sun. And the blue star is 1 full set of evening stars when it was the exterior conjunction, when Venus was on the far side of the Earth, like the one we just had about a month ago, mid-August. We had a Venus-Sun conjunction at 21 degrees Leo. And from that, because it was the exterior conjunction, it will produce the evening star. And pretty soon now, in a number of days, we will be able to see Venus in the evening sky. She takes a little longer to emerge out of the evening sky from the conjunction, from the cazimi, than she does in the morning star in the interior conjunction. And there's astronomical reasons for that. But in any case, the morning star is always the product of the interior conjunction and the evening star is always the product of the exterior conjunction. So I take that into my interpretation too. It's one of the first things I look at with the Venus star point, is not just what sign do you have it in, what house is it falling in, but are you a morning star or are you an evening star? And so that's another thing, you know, that we'll consider. This is the way the star pattern of these conjunctions, these cazimis, look in a 40-year timeline. So what you can see here is it's coming back to the same signs over and over again. The interior conjunctions, if you're just drawing a star from that, you would go Leo to Capricorn to Gemini to Scorpio to Aries. But it's going around, Venus actually moves around the wheel this way, but every other time she makes that conjunction with the sun in you know, a pattern where actually the star is moving clockwise around the wheel, around the zodiac, rather than counterclockwise the way we track the rest of the planets. So like the nodes, the Venus star point moves backwards, meaning she enters the sign at like 29 degrees of the sign and slowly moves through the sign, which takes about 100 years through each sign. For her to complete one whole sign is 100 years. And for instance, we're going to be terminating the Scorpio star point very shortly now in 2026. Well, the Scorpio star point began in 1926. So most of us alive have been here for the whole duration of this Scorpio star point, is one of the 5 points on the Venus star while we've been alive. The same as with Aries. Aries came in also in the late 20s, and it will early 30s, and it will terminate in the 2030s, again for 100 years. So Scorpio and Aries are partners, what we call life mates, because they're connected on that star. Also, Leo and Capricorn are connected, meaning they came in together, they're staying in a relationship together their whole life, and then they will phase out together. Gemini is the only star in this system right now that's kind of acting on its own without a total life mate. It has these star partners as its mates, but it's going to switch halfway through and get a whole new set of mates. So what we know about Gemini from the Venus star perspective is that it has more partners than any other of the star signs. Cancer is like this too. Against traditional wisdom, maybe in astrology, that Cancers are loyal and faithful, but Cancer has a lot of star partners too. So, but that's another thing we would talk about more in a workshop. I want to kind of get to Melanie's chart here. So one of the first things I look at before I even look at the star points in a chart is I do this beginner wheel, because I like to look at this bar down here of elements and modes. And as we can see, and most people, even if they don't understand astrology, they can understand the fact that she's got a lot of earth here and she can see it. Look at this bar of earth. It's way out here, way ahead of all the other elements. And down here in the modes, she has the fixed mode way out here, a little bit ahead of mutable, quite a bit ahead of cardinal. So when we take these two together, fixed earth, we get Taurus. We get a Taurus signature. So that adds another earth element to Melanie's chart. She's already Capricorn rising with quite a few planets in Capricorn and earth sign. And she's a Virgo sun and moon, born at the new moon, which is also earth signs. So really, she's triple earth. When you add the chart signatures, she's quadruple earth, with taking Taurus into consideration. So with earth, I always think of grounded and practical and productivity and getting things done and knowing how to figure things out and just really wanting to get to what it is, you know, the task at hand or what has to be done next, and kind of embodied in a way. So that's the main thing I take from this chart. Of course, I also look at patterns, the fact that most of her chart is in the upper hemisphere, on the sky rather than below the earth. It's in the daytime part of the wheel rather than the nighttime. So this is a more public, more proactive out there, even though, again, we have some, the houses of intimacy, the houses of privacy, the 12th house and the 8th house, where a lot of the planets are. So I think Melanie needs a lot of time to regroup, to recharge her batteries, to get going again. But I think she fuels herself up for also, getting a lot done. So while we think of Venus as primarily describing one's relationship life, here it is, retrograde in the 8th house at 21 degrees Leo. We also, in the Venus star point, we also see it as a strong motivating force behind your life in terms of who you are, what you want to do. I call it kind of the joy of life, the talent that you're born with, what you're born to do, what you feel good doing, what you know how to do, what other people see you good at doing. So I'm happy to say that when we look at, this is the Find Your Venus Star Point table from my website, from a PDF on my website, which you can all access to find your Venus Star Point. We find that she was born, this is supposed to say in this case, it says in this ace, but it's, in this case, she's born after the August 1991 date, but before the June 1992 date. So because she's after the 1991 date, we go back to the prenatal conjunction of the Sun and Venus, and here it is at 29 Leo. And remember, I said the star point enters the sign at 29 degrees. So for Melanie, this is the very first time, August of 91, and really go back to August of 87. 87 and 91 were the first group of star points in Leo, the first 8-year group of star points for the whole 100 years of Leo that is to follow. And I find that when people are born at the beginning of a star point, they're ushering in a wave. They're leaders in a way. They're leaders of their group. They're ushering in a wave of new thought, new ideas, new kinds of creativity. And of course, Leo is just filled with creativity and bursting with talent. So it's also, as some astrologers might know, 29 Leo is conjunct the fixed star Regulus, the star of fame. And we'll come to her chart in a moment and talk a little bit more about that. But we also see that for her, the other 4 star points are these blue lines. The 2 arms are right next to the head of the star, and then the 2 legs are over here. So her 5 star points are Capricorn, Scorpio, Leo, Gemini, and Aries, which they are for the world right now. But these are the specific degrees. These will be how they fit into her whole natal wheel. And, oh, by the way, this is Sirius Software, David Cochrane. I'm going to give a nod to him, Hercules, over here. He developed the Venus Star Point. He put the 5 points of the Venus Star Point in Sirius Software. And this is actually, I took a copy, an actual photograph from the page of Melanie's chart on Sirius Software. This is exactly how it shows up, and this is exactly what it says about her 5 points. So you can look at it here too if you have this software, and I do recommend it. Back to now, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but this is for anybody interested in where the star points are now. This is our current Venus clock. I call it a Venus clock. I call it the cosmic heartbeat of our time. It's operating behind the zodiac. Most of us don't see it and don't know it's even there, but these planets, this heartbeat of Venus, these cazimis of Venus and the Sun to the Earth against the backdrop of the zodiac are powerful heartbeats that are resonating within us at any given time. So now let's look at Melanie's 5 points of the star. And again, as we saw from the table, this is her head at 29 Leo. These are her 2 hands, one's Scorpio and one's Gemini. And these are the 2 feet, one's Aries and one's 29 Capricorn. And I think what struck me about this for Melanie was that I tend to look at star points in terms of how close are they to all 5 of them, actually, but first starting with the head, the primary, that's the driver of the star vehicle for a person is what their own personal star point is. But the other 4 are important too. But I always look at how does this Venus star point bring the planets from the natal chart into the Venus star? So how does it reach out to your chart and say, okay, I'm embracing Jupiter, and in this case, it is embracing Jupiter almost exactly. So the fact that Jupiter and the Venus star point are conjunct Regulus, the star of fame, and Jupiter has a strong presence in life anyway. It has a lot to do with our ideals and our beliefs and what we aspire to and where we want to go in life. I'm going to say that with the Venus star backing it up, I'm sure that Melanie is going to be successful in what she aspires to do and where she tends to want to go, and that she's very intuitive with all these planets in the 8th. Now, you may notice that in David's chart, the Jupiter, Mercury, Venus were in at the end of the 7th house. He was using a different house system, I believe Placidus. I'm using the Koch system. It's just something my teacher taught me a long time ago, and I've just stuck to it pretty much. And so it brings all of those planets into the 8th house, and it takes Mars out of the 8th and puts it into the 9th. So there's a few differences, but I will say when a planet is this close to a cusp, I would say use the 5-degree rule either side of the cusp. You kind of want to look at both houses as more of like the interpretation of that. But I want to point out this Jupiter being very strong to the star point. I want to point to Saturn being on the foot. Now the feet, if the head of the star is loaded but there's nothing on the feet, sometimes things don't get implemented. You know, there's not the grounding unless you have a partner to help you that have planets or star points around these feet. But I see Saturn on this foot. So that means Saturn, I see Saturn as somebody who also wants to get things done and is a hard worker. And it's interesting because in your life, Melanie, Jupiter at the last degree of Leo is going to progress out of Leo into Virgo, an earth sign. And Saturn in retrograde is progressing out of Aquarius back into Capricorn, another earth sign. So this is going to give you more earth even as you progress forward in life. But on your foot is not only Saturn, but it's conjunct your natal part of fortune, which I mean that's a success point as well. And then the third star point that's important here is the hand at 9 degrees Scorpio, which is 1 degree away from your natal midheaven. And you have Ceres at 11 Scorpio and Pluto a little further away. So that brings the Ceres-Pluto Scorpio conjunction into your star point configuration as well. So these are the ones that I'm really concentrating on pretty much in my interpretation. But I can't also forget the fact that your sun is 15 Virgo, trining Neptune, 14 Capricorn. And so the sun trine Neptune is also going to be a big part of, let's say, your dream life, what you aspire to, what you believe in, living your beliefs, putting them in action, that sort of thing. As the star points are at the beginning or the end of a sign, like your Leo star point is at the beginning of Leo, even at 29. Jupiter and Saturn are at the beginning and end of the sign. And that usually, I interpret that as somebody that has the vision of the future, always looking ahead to what's next, what's the next generation, what's, what needs to happen, but they're still strongly carrying with them the knowledge of the past, how things either worked in the past or didn't work in the past, and using that as, like the experience that you have, the real experience you have, grounded, doing the, let's say the foot soldier work, since this Saturn is on your foot, being the foot soldier and getting the boot camp training in life to know exactly when you're the leader in the leadership position, what to do, what not to do, and how to make that work. I also thought that this Ceres Pluto conjunction at your midheaven and on this star point was pretty important because Ceres, and Pluto are related in the mythology of Demeter and her daughter Persephone going to the underworld and being abducted by Pluto, and Demeter or Ceres being the mother who was mourning for her lost daughter and had to go in search of her and have her retrieved and had her restored to her. And this is Ceres is the Mother Earth goddess. She is actually, in the Olympian rulership, she's the ruler of Virgo. She is the goddess holding the harvested wheat. The icon we see for Virgo, that's Ceres, that's Demeter. So here in Scorpio, she's bringing up material from the underworld, energies that literally speak of resurrection and transformation, healing and awareness. She's truly the mother goddess coming to the aid of her children by providing food or comfort, rebirth, healing, and or all of the above to what you do in life. And I found it quite fitting that you mentioned that you were running a therapeutic horticultural program for those in a detention center because truthfully, Melanie, I couldn't think of a more perfect description of that configuration than doing something like that. The goddess of the earth, using herbs and plants and nature and using it in a healing way, Ceres, Pluto, resurrecting those who have been in the underworld, who need a way to come back into life again, to be reborn into something that's going to be meaningful for them. I just think that's a beautiful configuration. And I'm not saying you will stay doing that for life, but it is something that I really feel, I don't know if it's a program that you designed and developed or it's a model that somebody else designed and developed and you decided this is for me, I want to do it. But I feel like you could train so many people to do this at a collective level, that doing things like this and that this thing could branch out. You have the potential to be very big in what you do in life and what you undertake. You just have to make sure you do have the energy for it and that your boundaries are intact. And I think they're coming intact now more than maybe they have been before, because you're also getting kind of a nodal return or opposition on your nodes right now. You've got this nodal axis well. And you had also asked about relationships a little bit, and I wanted to mention that I think this last 2 years has been both a very challenging time for you with all these planets in Capricorn going over this Capricorn stellium that you have, but also a very rewarding time because remember, the Venus star is the final answer here. and she's behind all these planets, and she's more powerful than those planets and that star of Venus. And so for both 2018 and again in 2022, the 18-degree Capricorn star point in January of both years will be where the Venus star point is. So it's right on your ascendant and your north node, which to me, when it's on the ascendant, it's like a real coming into life, coming into who you were born to be in a way. And I also think because Juno, the goddess of marriage, is so close, this is another signature of the current star point. It's time to consider a more serious partnership. She's not quite there at 15 yet. She's still at 18, but she's inching backwards towards Juno. So the next couple of star points, she's going to keep getting closer to Juno and Neptune, which could be looked at sort of as maybe a soulmate type of relationship. They're in the 12th house. Something that feels right to you, that feels like you've been with them before, that it feels like you're really connected at a deep soul level. And here's your Venus at 21, Leo. If I were talking to you personally and had a lot more time, we would delve into the whole retrograde pattern of your Venus and when it went direct and how the star point was configured to that. But suffice it to say for now that last month's star point, Leo star point, yours was 29 when you were born. It's been inching slowly back through Leo over your lifetime. And right now, here it is at 21 on your Venus. So this was exciting to me because both relationship goddesses that you could say, Venus, the love goddess, and Juno, the marriage goddess, and the ascendant, which ascendant, descendant, and nodal axis has a lot to do with important meetings and relationships in life too. But they're all coming together right now. They're all sort of being activated in this time, in this current star point period, not just this year, but in this, I like to look at this, you know, these star points of now as the 8-year pentagram. So in this 8-year cycle, other planets will come and trigger those points and activate them. You'll have, you know, eclipses come over them, or you'll have another planet come over them, or something like that that will line things up more, where you can narrow the timeline down to, you know, more like months or weeks or even days. But I would say for the whole 8-year pattern, this is a pretty exciting time in your life right now. And
so
that,
Arielle,
yes,
just a quick note. So maybe we can hear some feedback from Melanie, you know, if
yes, I
there
would
was
love to.
any change that occurred last month or in this period of time as the star point was on her Venus. And generally, you know, if we can hear from her, because we're about to end our time.
Okay, I would like to hear about the January 2018 one where it was right on your node and your ascendant in Capricorn, and also the one this August of 2019 where it was right on your Venus. Do you feel that there's been a really enormous change within you, an opening to love, or an opening in your life to just come out more and to be who you are?
There's definitely been a transformation over the last 2+ years. I think there's a couple indicators as to why. Pluto crossing my ascendant was also quite something. January 2018 was a pivotal time for me, from October to like March of 2017 to 2018. And yeah, really felt like I was coming into myself in a new way. Not that I was changed, but deeper resonance with my own inner self. And then this past August, there's been a handful of themes that have been reoccurring over the last 2 years that I've been growing with. And there was a lot of resolution for me around relationships, around self-love, around my own sense of beauty and connection. And yeah, the fact that that was happening at 21 degrees Leo was on my radar. And I think, pretty organically wove in some really beautiful lessons that have been growing and we're ready to bloom.
Okay, good.
I hope that's not
Well, keep watching it because it's going to keep, it's not, it started August of 2019, but this whole 9-month period, at least until we get to the Gemini point of June of 2020, this Leo star point is really, the main star point that's activating all of our charts right now. So we want to look at 21 Leo wherever it is and how it occurs and other things passing through. So this is a 9-month period where, and I would say because of Venus retrograde in the 8th house, self-image and self-love have a lot to do with the Venus theme. And I just think that the star point right now is awakening that self-love in you in a way that's never been ignited before. And I think really making you realize that, not to have those doubts anymore. I mean, we're always going to have some little doubts there lingering, but I think for the most part, you can start stepping into your confidence, your self-confidence, and your sense of beauty and your sense of what it is, how you're flowering in the Venus star universe and what you're offering to the world at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arielle.
I hope that all made sense to everybody. It was kind of a whirlwind to get through all of that, but I just want you to study it, keep following it in your own charts. You'll see all kinds of interesting synchronicities.
Yes, I mean, people have responded that it was, they've really enjoyed your teachings and they've been really inspired by your presentation. Brilliant.
And this is the Venus star where you can get all the information on Venus star point. Venus.com. So please feel free to go there, read the articles, access the table, and get whatever you need. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Arielle. And it's fascinating to see, two presenters showing completely different angles and highlighting these important qualities of the chart. And we're moving now to Oner, who is going to take us on another ride. Welcome, Oner.
Hi. Well, it was great to be here. Really, it is fantastic. And thanks to David and Arielle. And now I will be presenting and we'll try to find out my slides first. And to share. No. Cannot find out my screen. Yeah. I should share. No.
You can escape from perhaps widescreen.
Oh, yeah.
That can help.
Oh, sorry about it. Just.
Are you on full screen?
Oh, I don't think so, but maybe.
Here it is.
Yeah, you can see it from here, yeah. Right, can you see it now?
Yes, yes.
Yes, great. So, I will be presenting actually with the techniques depending on traditional astrology today. And traditional astrology is predictive on its basis, which gives us the ability to describe the objective reality that native experiences. And the traditional techniques are very methodical, actually, and reliable. If you can use them in order masterly, actually, you can get highly accurate and good results. But what I told before, as I told before, I mainly use traditional astrology methods, especially medieval astrology methods in my analysis, and blending it with modern techniques as well. So I want you to know that in my school, in our 3 years trainings, we are also teaching midpoints, harmonics, and every modern techniques as well. And what I'm trying to do to blend the traditional techniques with the modern ones. And I'm using, as you see here, the generational planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, as well as Chiron, and the other asteroids as well, actually.
Can
But
you,
to make
Oner, can you show the chart, the bigger version, so everybody can see the chart?
is it still small?
Yeah, did you click on it? Because we only see the software, we don't see the chart.
So, wow. But I cannot see my, yeah, here I think if I open this one, you can see all. Can you see it now?
No, you are not
No,
sharing now. You're not sharing
I'm not
anything.
sharing. I don't know why this is happening. Actually, files, I cannot see it.
Here,
No.
you're sharing now.
Yeah, it's okay now. Okay.
We see your PowerPoint.
Now here we go. Yes, and you can see the Arabic parts as well.
Yes.
Great. Good. So, as you see here, I'm using traditional and modern planets, including Chiron as well. And plus, I'm using some traditional techniques such as Arabic parts and fixed stars. Of course, Almut and Figuris, which is the ruler of the chart. So the first thing I would like to tell Melanie that she has a very powerful chart, because the most important thing actually in both traditional and modern astrology, of course, is the ascendant and the ruler of the ascendant. So we see Saturn as the ruler of the ascendant placed in the first house, which is the strongest house of a chart. And the other two things that are most important are the sun and the moon, and they are in trine aspect with the ascendant. So this is a very powerful chart which indicates actually success and fame as well. The sun is the main significator of success and the fame and glory in general. Now in this chart, the sun is trining to the ascendant, and of course, the sun and moon together, that are the lights, very important figures in traditional astrology about rank of the person in general and her status in general. Plus, we have the ruler of the MC, although we use traditionally Mars, but also we see that the modern ruler of the MC, Pluto, is placed in the 10th house, very close to the MC. So this chart indicates success and not very late future, very close times, because when Saturn returns to its own place around 20.5 years of age, and with Jupiter, of course, we will see that it will start. And when that Saturn, which is in the first degree of Aquarius, get Pluto transit almost 4-5 years later, especially when Melanie is 33 years old in her 10th house perfection, she will get a good success, as I guess. So I will be speaking about the primary motivation of Melanie today, and I will be speaking about her finances and profession as well as marriage, children, and health as well. But first of all, I want to start with primary motivation. What motivates her? What takes her actually? So as we see on the ascendant Capricorn, Capricorn is a very down to earth sign, and of course very practical. And as we can see, I see her for the first time, a very serious personality, since we have Capricorn rising and of course Saturn in the first house. And one of the other benefits, the North Node placed very close to the ascendant, which takes her to the future and success as well. This is another significator, show success actually. And the primary purpose of Melanie in life is to realize her responsibilities that taken on. And of course, to be in safe financially is very important for her as well, since we have an earth sign on the ascendant and we have the ruler of the second house, Saturn, in the first house. By the way, I'm using the modern and traditional rulers. And of course, we are using in modern times Uranus as the ruler of Aquarius. Yes, I will be using it. But what I want to show you about especially the mutual reception, which is very important in traditional astrology, when a planet is in a sign which is ruled another one, and the other one is in a sign which is ruled in the first one, by the first one. So Saturn placed in Aquarius here and Uranus placed in Capricorn. So there is mutual reception here, which is very powerful actually, gives the chance to Melanie to bring the old and the modern together. This is very important. When he is using her own techniques, or because I know that I see that she's very creative, she will find her own way and she will create her own techniques. And of course, since we see the ruler of the first house in the first house, she will be dependent on her own way very strictly. And of course, Melanie, you are a very good fighter and you are very idealistic, since that Saturn placed in Aquarius. And it is a very good placement also to work for the goodness of the community in general. What is the problematic way of the Saturn's place in the first house? The life is not very easy. You have to get your responsibility on, and you have to carry them, and your way is not very easy actually, but you have the ability to continue what you have started, because Capricorn is a cardinal sign, but Saturn placed in a fixed sign, Aquarius. So when you start something, it is good to see that you will continue and complete it, since the ruler of the ascendant placed in a fixed sign. Saturn retrograde, so of course, sometimes you have to return back to complete what is uncompleted yet. So you are a hard worker. But I know that when you get the responsibility on, you are trying to finish it. And of course, since that Saturn is in conjunction with Altair, which is an important fixed star actually, according to Vivian Rapson, Altair confers a bold, confident, valiant, unyielding, ambitious, and liberal nature. And of course, you are someone who is fighting for her own ideals. And this Saturn is very important, as I will be speaking about a bit later, because it is also your professional significator, actually one of the professional significators of yours, but the most powerful one. So to see the ruler of the first, I mean, your significator in the first house, is a good news that you will depend on yourself for realizing your own life purposes. And about spirituality, actually, the traditional astrology is not that spiritual, but of course, it includes something spiritual inside. When we talk about spirituality in traditional astrology, we first talk about Almuthan figures, which is the ruler of the chart. Actually, in general, it is called in medieval times as the guardian angel of the native. Actually, this Almuthan figures is Mercury in your chart. So you will like, I think you like sciences, business world, and communication in generally, and always you want to learn something. And of course, you might be very smart. Actually, you think so? And Shred, actually, according to my master Robert Zoller, Almuthan figures is as important as the ruler of the chart and is a gateway to universal to combine with it, but by means of negative theology, as it were. It is the strength of the native in the world, which I will be speaking about it later about your Mercury, because Mercury is in conjunction with Regulus, one of the most important fixed stars, one of the royal stars, actually. So Almuthan figures indicates the dominant quality or dominant side of her character, but by means of negative theology, as it were, as I said, letting go or transcending the dominant quality it represents. So, yes, you are logical because as we see, you have moon and sun in Virgo that are mercurial signs, but sometimes you have to learn to believe your intuitions, actually. So you have to transcend your too much rational side, and you have to believe your intuitions as well. Because in the spiritual realm, you must let go of the narrow side of Mercury. Actually, your chart is giving a chance to you for doing it because you have Mercury conjunct Jupiter, which broadens your mind, which opens you to more broad sides of your work and anything in the world. And both are in conjunction with Regulus, as I said, which is one of the most important fixed stars. So that Jupiter conjunct Mercury gives a broad outlook of life and the ability to get the overall picture right. But you should avoid self-righteousness and arrogance, which is the most important thing, because this is the shadowy side of this Mercury-Jupiter conjunction. And also, Mercury is very important in your chart since it is the Almuthan of profession. By the way, I will make a short explanation about what is Almuthan. When we talk about something, let's say profession, we make a dignity table, and in that dignity table, let's say we use the ruler of the 10th house, the 10th house degree, and the part of profession and its ruler, etc. So at the end, we find out which is the most powerful planet signifying the profession of the native. So although you have Saturn as one of the most powerful significator of your chart as your profession, Mercury is also very important, which gives you the ability to find out something new and using your communication ability to talk about it to all people around you and to teach as well. So Mercury is in conjunction with Regulus, actually, which gives you honor, just popularity, and even financial gains through your career and through your high position, actually. But success will come if revenge is avoided. This is very important because this is the main topic of Regulus. The success is very close to person, but which is to be avoided is to revenge from someone who um, who blocked you or who make you difficulty in your life before your success or your high status actually. And another thing when we are talking about spirituality is one of the Arabic parts as part of spirit. Part of spirit falls in 11 Capricorn in your chart, which is very close to Uranus. As we all know very well, Uranus is related with creativity in general, and to do something as which other people does not do, something new, as I told you before. And again, you have Uranus Saturn mutual reception, bringing the old with the new one. So it is a good idea to work with the new techniques, but on the background, always there should be the old ones. So bringing them together is a good idea. And of course, this part is very close to your Neptune as well. So part of spirit is very important, especially in spiritual counseling. And also this indicates what the individual value above all other things. What does she respect above all other things? So what you respect above all other things is Uranian, actually. Something different, something very new, something you just created yourself, not uh, not something coming from other people, actually, what you created yourself. So this is very important. And since that part falls in an earth chart, so you will look for a practical benefit from what you are doing, actually. Another part, which is again important in spiritual counseling, part of Hilak, which falls in 26 Capricorn, again, the same sign. So actually, you have two important parts in Capricorn. And of course, you have Capricorn Ascendant, you have Sun and Moon in Virgo, so very earthy. So Pars Hilek or part of Hilek indicates the path of the native or the life task of the native, what she is doing here, what the purpose of her life. So since that part falls in the first house, which is a very powerful placement, and since its ruler Saturn placed in the first house, first of all, this is very strong positioning, which indicates that you will be able to achieve your life purpose in life strongly because that part falls in the first house and its ruler falls in the first house as well. And so that part also, part of Hilek, falls very close to the part of fortune, which gives you a good fortune for realizing your life purposes, which I told you before, to structure something, to build something, and to put it into practice in general. And of course, when we move to financial indicators, again, we see that part of fortune, which is the one of most important thing when we are talking about financial significators in a chart, placed in the first house. In traditional astrology, when we are talking about finances, we use two parts, two Arabic parts. One of them is part of fortune, and the other one is part of substance. And part of substance falls in Aquarius, again in the first house, and part of fortune falls in Capricorn, again in the first house. These are very powerful placements. So both parts are ruled by Saturn, and Saturn rules the second house, which is the house of money in general. So Saturn is very much related with your finances. To see Saturn in the first house, which is the ruler of the second house as well, means money comes to you. But it will not be that easy because this is Saturn. So when you work hard, that means you will make money, but it will not come to you easily, like flying, but it will come to you by hard working. Of course, since Saturn retrogrades, it will take you some time, but not that long. It will happen around the end of 2020 with Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on your Saturn, actually. And beginning from that time, you will start to make more money through hard working. And of course, it will be a good idea to do something related with sciences as well, or to put science always into your profession and finance. And of course, about your career, again, we have to look the angular placement of the planets in your chart, which, as I told you before, one of them is Saturn and the other one is Pluto. By the way, I'm using 5 degree of warp in general. So I see this Venus very close to the 8th house cusp, in the 8th house actually. So although this Venus is angular, as you see, is it in the 7th house, not powerful as Pluto and Saturn. So you have two significators of profession. The most powerful one is Saturn. So let's check what Saturn gives, or what Saturn represents in general. Farmers, gardeners, engineers, and horticulturists, one of them. So you are doing very well. It's your own job. So you will be successful through doing this kind of things because Saturn plays very well in the first house and it is unafflicted. Of course, except being retrograde, which indicates success will come a bit later. Unafflicted means not damaged by the other malefic planet Mars. Mars trines to that Saturn, and Saturn is not combust, not very close to the Sun. And of course, Saturn retrogrades. This is one of the difficult side of it, but in the first house, very powerful. So if a person has her own professional significator that powerful, she gets that success. But as I said, through hard working. And of course, we have another significator which lies in the 10th house, Pluto, in its own sign, Scorpio, very powerfully placed. And of course, when the MC and Pluto in Scorpio, let's see what kind of professions it gives. Medical profession, pharmacies, chemical laboratories, metallurgists, pathologists, and of course, biologists, and of course, a healer, of course, psychologists as well. So these are very powerful candidates of profession in your chart, which you can make success actually. And what is another important thing related with your job actually? MC conjunct fixed star alpaca, which gives success through the help of patients to heal treatment according to rigor. And MC conjunct fixed star acrux gives the ability making things practical or giving expression to ideas according to Benedetta Bredi, and the ability to successfully uncover hidden sides of even according to Eberton. These are very powerful placement actually. And plus part of profession, which is one of the most important part when we are talking about profession. Part of profession falls in 10 Virgo, which is very close to the sun. What does that mean? That means actually fame or success through profession. And of course, moon is very close to your sun as well. So until now, I told many things actually. I want to ask you what you are thinking about, what I'm telling you. So how do you feel?
I'm debating whether or not to bite my tongue on, I have plans for kind of the upcoming years around profession and healing and whatnot. Obviously, my current work does involve a lot of healing. And to speak to something you said, I actually was recruited by the County Office of Education to develop this program.
Yeah,
so
great.
I built it, I designed it, and I'm running it. So I definitely like to build.
Yeah, this is very Aquarian as well. By the way, your Venus is very close to the part of nobility, which falls in 21 Leo. Part of nobility is very important. Actually, when looking at this chart and putting this to the ascendant and turning the chart, you can understand if the person will make a good success and nobility through her workings or through her profession. So for part of nobility in conjunction with benefic Venus is very important. So maybe it would be a good idea to bring Venusian kind of things with your profession, like music, like flowers, like, art, this kind of things. How do you feel about it? Are you doing something like that?
I'm not doing a ton of music or art in my current job. However, I do have plans to go back to school in a year. I'm planning on studying Eastern medicine and acupuncture and incorporating that into my work. Not with the youth, but building out my practice.
Great. So we shall pass to your marriage signatures.
So with
Yeah.
with Venus on the part of nobility, will she marry a king?
Oh yeah, I hope so. Actually, she has 3 planets in Leo, so her expectation is very high. And yes, a white horse prince maybe. Uh, uh, Actually, when we talk about marriage, of course, we look to the position of Venus. Venus placed very close to the 8th house cusp.
Just a note, Oner, that we have about 5 more minutes, 7 more
All
minutes.
right, so I will be quick in reading this because this is very important, I'm sure. And so Venus is not unafflicted in your chart, very close to Mercury and Jupiter. Unafflicted means, yes, you will marry with someone. So Venus retrograde means, yes, it will be later years in your life, but of course you are around it. I mean, around 30 years of age. And probably 31, actually, because by profession, we come to the house where Venus falls at your 31 years of age. And about your career and profession, the most important years of you age of you will be 33 actually, when by perfection we come to your 10th house where Pluto falls, and around that time Pluto by transit will be passing through your Saturn placed powerfully in the first house. So I think you're gonna change something through your profession or related with your profession. You will do something new. Maybe you will close something and you will open something new that will give power to you in the years ahead. So actually, in summary, I'm expecting you make a marriage, just one marriage, and about children. When I look at your significators of children, which I will make a summary, you're not likely to have many children. But I think you will have at least one children, maybe two, but I guess one children. And about your relationship with your children will be good because the part falls in Gemini and actually 20 Gemini, and the ruler of it, Mercury, is between two malefics, Venus and Jupiter, which is good. So good relationship with your children, and you are likely to make a good marriage as well. Although you have Venus square Pluto, which gives you some difficulty in your relationship, and South Node very close to the 7th house card, which afflicts your relationship, one-to-one relationship. I think after your 30 years of age, especially beginning from 31, you will have a good luck in one-to-one relationship, and I think you're gonna marry around that time. And lastly, about your health, I will tell something very small but important. You have Moon placed in Virgo, and of course, part of disease falls in 23 Virgo, very close to that Moon. So sensitive digestion, allergies, and of course, the blood sugar issues are likely. And of course, emotions disturb the digestive tract, which is the case. You have to be careful about it. And there are many other things to tell you, but I think we are about to finish, Maurice.
Yes.
So I hope you enjoyed listening to all these, and I would like to take your last comments about it.
Thank you so much for the reading. It's been really interesting hearing everyone's commentary and weaving it in, and definitely want to digest all of it, and hope to follow up with each of you for further conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a quick feedback about digestion, and are you sensitive or?
Oh yeah, and I've always had a ton of emotions and feelings, and have really developed a lot of tools in the last couple of years for navigating that. This weekend I'm actually in a 2-day medical Qigong course. I'm missing this morning for this talk, but that's become an important practice in my life, and emotions in my body are very intertwined.
Yeah, and about your back as well, because the ruler of the 6th house, Mercury placed in Leo with 2 other planets. So this is one of the other things. You should be careful about it, right?
Okay. All right.
So, Oner, you were talking about the part of children being in Gemini, and the 5th house is also usually associated with children.
Yeah.
So why do you say one child and not 2 children? Because Gemini is always bringing doubles.
Yes, of course. But yes, 2 children are possibly. But actually, why I told so? Because there are some barren signs when you are finding significators. So Gemini, Leo, and Virgo, actually, they are all barren signs, which gives children, but in difficulty. And but since Mercury placed between 2 benefics, and Mercury sextiles the part as well, and so I think so. By the way, I want to tell you that we are working with David Cochrane about these indicators actually for serious program. So very soon, people can find out their professional significators or children's significators of children, substance, anything in their chart. They can see them because I cannot find these all together in any other software. But thank you, David, by the way, and he's preparing it. But it will be in Turkish, of course, but English as well, so people can find out their signatures, of course.
Well, we already know that we need to learn Turkish to read your books, so that will not be a problem at all.
Great.
And thank you. You're Orion, and we're moving to Kay Taylor, who is our Sagittarius card. And I want to also remind everyone, I didn't mention it when we first did the introduction, that Kay will be speaking at the OPA retreat and lead a track on relationships, astrology and relationships. So thank you, Kay, and thank you, Oner. So we can't hear you, Kay. Are you there? We see your screen. Can you speak now?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
And do you see my screen as full screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, hi, Melanie. Oh, gosh. My head is swimming with facts at this point in time. And so I want to take a deep breath and invite you to take a deep breath. And we can both just sort of settle in here to our hearts and the last piece of this very interesting and dynamic time, I would say, for everybody to come together. So thank you for being available for this. My astrology approach is evolutionary, which is kind of a blend of spiritual and psychological. I originated in this work 35 years ago as a clairvoyant channel, so that still to some degree comes into my sessions with people, although over the years I'm more and more an astrologer. And I also do healing work that's based on psychosynthesis, hypnotherapy, and energy. My approach really begins with the karmic story. I normally begin my session with that as, you know, who you were, who you're coming into this world as, based on the South Node and the aspects around the whole nodal axis. And I feel like it's very important to begin with this big picture approach of who one is over an evolutionary time frame. I don't think it matters whether people actually believe in past lives, because I feel like the whole process of lives is like some constructed thing, and that really we're in this energetic hologram. And, you know, the stories just help us as a metaphor make sense of things. But it's more the energy that is coming forward, the energy that we bring in on a soul level, that's so much a part of who we are, especially in the early part of life. So the other thing that I do a lot is I'm very proactive around the cycles. So when I'm working with people regularly, I want to be looking at what's coming up in transits and progressions years in advance, so that I can help people understand how to work with those cycles. Because I believe that when we know what the highest possibility is, that we can begin to get our life in order for that. And actually at the moment of what might be, you know, intense, or somebody might have some fear about a particular transit, we can be ready so that it fits in like a lock and a key, and the highest results happen at that point, instead of things blowing up so that now we've got our warning, you know, this is what Pluto on the sun is asking us to do. So my style, I would say, is very simple, the astrology I use, and very much a counseling style. I use Placidus houses. I will say the reason I use Placidus houses is because many years ago, I was at a lecture that Lynn Bell was giving, and she said, in Europe, we all use Placidus houses and we don't argue about it, so there. And I went home, I've been using Coke, I went home and I ran a bunch of charts and I went, oh yeah, that makes sense. And so thank you, Lynn, if you're listening, that shifted me. But now I like the idea of whole signs in the background, because I've seen again and again that there's a certain accuracy around transits moving through the whole sign and the way that we're kind of fluid. I don't believe there's a fence in the sky. So I use very wide orbs in the way that I construct things. Obviously, if I was looking to predict exactly when something's going to happen, I might use a narrower orb. But in terms of understanding who a person is, and the way that, especially those of us who are more intuitive and conscious, feel transits of the big planets years in advance of them getting close, I always have in mind what's coming up way in the future. Now, here I have the natal chart, and as I come into this chart, the first thing that I notice is that you are a South Node Cancerian person. I would say, you know, you're a Cancerian soul. At the heart of you, you are all about nurturing, love, healing, food, warm, cozy home, family. And this is technically in the 6th house, so it makes me think of service and the work that you might be inclined to do to serve others with this very well-developed part of self. However, it's so close to the 7th house, the descendant, that I'm also going to consider this nodal axis in the 7th house as well. In classic evolutionary interpretation, we're going to say that in prior lives, you have been identified by your marriages and partnerships, and that that was probably a sticking point, you know, where you didn't fully get to be your own being, your own person. And the fact that the moon, which rules the Cancer South Node, is in the 8th house and it's conjunct the sun, that adds to the interpretation that you were probably in lifetime energy where things were very difficult. You know, think about the 8th house, many different things. In evolutionary astrology, we sometimes think of it as intimate bonding. So it's another level of marriage where you're going deeper. Money issues are on the line. Trust is really on the line. But it's also in that sense of woundedness, you know, the darker parts of life, the evil, death and destruction. That to me, that tells me that on that heart's level, you are very attuned to the challenges that people go through, because within yourself, you also have gone through these challenges, and that you were both a nurturer and also son, a powerful person in helping to bring about healing. So we get healing with the Cancer South Node. We also get healing with the sign of Virgo, which likes to work with aspects that are about diet, nutrition. Not surprising at all when I found out that you have this horticultural project. It makes so much sense with the chart, as other people have said, because of that immediate connection into the 8th house, where you're taking your power, a sort of sense of destiny, your heart, so really heart and soul here, into caring about the suffering and the struggling of life. And additionally, to add to this emphasis of relationship that you have well experienced and integrated into you, we have Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter in the 7th house. Now, I also read those into the 8th house. So I'll be thinking of them throughout the chart as, you know, in both places. But a stellium in Leo in the 7th says to me that in this life, you need partners. Now we know, because we're all astrologers here, that the Capricorn North Node and the Ascendant and Saturn is all drawing you into individuality and your personal accomplishment. But I would say that there's an ambivalence here. The Leo energy plus the South Node would say to me that you are very good at partnering. You're very good at relating to people. It's quite natural to you to think about what other people need, to be loyal, to be validating, that your belief system is really tied up in some way around connections with others. And again, going back to the karma of it, as a soul, you said, well, hey, this is great. I'm good at it. I've developed it. I can do anything in this realm, healing and with people. But in this life, I want to forge ahead and do my own thing. I want to build something for me. And we have the surface personality, the Capricorn ascendant, right there, slightly into the 12th house. We have the North Node. The North Node says, in order to accomplish what you need to accomplish in this life, you need to get a better sense of boundaries. You need to have an agenda and stick to it, because with the South Node in Cancer, it's very easy to get tied up in what other people need, especially in the first part of life, right? You're just sort of naturally there going, yeah, I can help this person, and this person needs this, and I want these people I love and care for to be happy. But as we start to develop into the North Node Capricorn, we see that it's important that our own agenda is very significant, that we've learned to set loving boundaries, because we're never really going to be real hard ass, but loving boundaries. And with Saturn in Aquarius in the first house, that adds a certain level of emphasis about what worked against you in prior lives, as well as what you have to integrate fully and develop in this life to its highest potential. So we could consider what worked against you in a prior life, something about the patriarchy, the structure, the government, the police, sort of anybody that's got that kind of power. And I see that you yourself need to step into this role of being an authority, of working hard to build something and to be your own authority. And in the sign of Aquarius, you're going to be revolutionary, right? You're going to be somebody who thinks outside of the box, has new ideas. I would suspect as well with the Uranus and Neptune, which are conjoined the North Node, that we get the flavor again of against you and how you develop. Uranus against you is, maybe there was such intensity in the revolution going on in prior lives that, you didn't get to live. And with Neptune, the overall confusion, sort of loss and dissolution, which you get a lot of sense of loss with 12th house planets anyway, that you didn't quite get all the way to work with your theories. And so you come into this life very much already attuned, I would expect from a very young age, with all of this Capricorn energy around the ascendant, that you had a strong inner sense of what was wrong with the world and how you were different from the world you were born into. And that you have been cultivating your spirituality, your sense of activism, sense of being a very unique kind of person, not wanting to fit on relationship roles, gender roles, anything that is sort of part of the tradition is for you has to be restructured and changed. And with Saturn in the first house, you're going to begin by feeling like, I'm going to have to jump in and do it. And so the fact that, what I think is a relatively young age, you have created this program, that is amazing, but it also makes sense. And it also helps you balance between the relationship personal part of you, and this gotta forge forward with my spiritual truth and make something happen, be really practical. I'm not going to sit on the sidelines and wait for other people. I'm see the problems. I've got that Virgo. I know how to fix the problems. I'm skillful. The Leo comes forward and says, you know, I'm this like big picture person. People are going to like me. Like I can really see how people would gravitate to you and see you as an expert before you really even thought you were. And so you're balancing always in this life back and forth between this personal and this transpersonal energy. The other planet, I mean, really, you're a very simple chart in a way, sort of this back and forth energy. It's going to play out in every circumstance. I find it very interesting. We're going to come back to the Mars when we go more into the future. That Mars that sits up near the 9th house and in a square to Uranus. I feel like that says a lot of things, you know, about you and your desire nature, wanting to be unique and different and changeable. The fact that there's a mandate here to be someone who is very visionary out in the world and who is doing something about peace and justice and relationship harmony and bringing in balance. And when we get to the solar arc and progression, we'll see how this is going to be activated in the next few years. So I wasn't at all surprised to hear that you're thinking to go back to school, because I was wondering what was actually going to build. I was certain from looking at the chart that as much as it sounds amazing to be doing this program, that you would not be staying with it, that you're going to evolve past that. And the ultimate stage is much bigger, a much bigger picture of change that you'll want to make. The other piece that's very significant, I feel, is Pluto in the 10th house, Scorpio, own sign. And you know, this says to me that you are a person of transformational power, and that as you grow through this life, you will be seen for this. And it's also more of this attunement that you have to Scorpio in 8th house and the challenges. And thinking of you with acupuncture, form of medicine, that also fits with this. But even when you're saying you're going to go back to school and be an acupuncturist, my sense is that, again, that's another step in this overall picture toward some level of trying to change the world and bring about deeper levels of healing for those who are disenfranchised. And so we will... I think the other thing I wanted to mention here is that the Mars in Libra is not technically a skipped step. In evolution astrology, we would say that any planet that's directly square the nodes is a skip step. But it is square to Uranus, which kind of pulls you into the node. So here's an example of my loose orbs. I feel like that Mars in Libra is a significant piece for you to activate before you fully manifest your North Node vision. And so going back to school, learning more, being a pioneer in various ways, this is all activation that you need to do to fully come into your destiny. As Oner had mentioned earlier, that moon and sun trine to the ascendant and Saturn in the 1st house, this too to me feels potent in terms of your ability to accomplish whatever it is you set your mind to. Now, in the beginning of a reading, I might just generally, just again, telling people how I do my work, quickly looking at things like elements and declination. one of the things I noticed here is that someone might say that you have an imbalance in elements, that water is low, but because the South Node is in Cancer, I consider your elemental balance pretty even for accomplishing in the various realms. And also I thought it was fascinating that Uranus is right on the very edge of out of bounds. So it adds emphasis to the Uranian signature, which I feel is very significant with its square Mars, and also as the dispositor of Saturn and Aquarius in the first house. Now, coming into the transits at this point in time, first of all, going back a little bit, you had mentioned in the brief piece of information you gave us that about 3 years ago, you've had a couple of important relationships, but you choose to be single in this moment. And so I went back to 2016 and noticed that that was when Pluto was coming into the stellium, the North Node, coming over the ascendant in these years, and also that Jupiter was conjunct the moon a few years ago. So to me, that seemed like a really important time to be coming into relationships that their purpose would be both expanding and connecting you to some of your soul level patterns, moon ruling the South Node, moon in the 8th house. So there's this expansion of like really getting to see, what do you believe now about relationship? Who are you? What kind of relationship do you need? Getting maybe outside the box. And then, of course, this huge level of transit of Pluto, which has been going on for many years over the North Node, and Uranus, Neptune now over the ascendant. This is a hugely intense time to transform the way that you show up in the world, how you think of yourself, the way that people see you, how you look even. All of this is in the process of going into the subconscious energy of Pluto, which of course is big for you. In the 10th house in Scorpio, your memory of wounding is quite strong. And one of the things that I don't necessarily want to go into deeply in a public forum, but I have to mention with all the relationship astrology work that I do, to have Pluto square the Venus so tightly, to me indicates trauma, relationship betrayal, sexual wounding, certainly in past lives, probably to some degree in this life. And the process of Pluto on the ascendant is going to take you into the intensity of relationship on all levels. And it is really all about freeing you to show up as who you really are. And so I commend you for all the work you've been doing, because I can feel that, yes, you have been doing this work. And right now, where we sit in this moment is, the Plutonian work has well in hand, but now Saturn comes along in my mind as the cleanup crew and helping you make the new structures and make the changes in the tangible world for you to come into this new life, which when Saturn and Jupiter conjoin on your Saturn at the end of 2020 is such a great beginning for you. And, you are in tune with the next cycle of the world over the next 19 years. You're ready. And then also, at the end of 2020, your Saturn return cycle begins. Now, I feel for those of you who have a lot of Capricorn planets, and you've already gone through so much Pluto and Saturn, the Saturn return is going to be a lot easier, and you will be a lot more ready than the average person. But nevertheless, you will be continuing to release the structures of yourself and life that come from your cultural and family imprinting, and definitely stabilizing a whole new 30-year plan for you. At the same time, Uranus will be going back and forth a little bit more into the 4th house now. So deepening changes around foundation, home, family, where you're supposed to live. And that certainly affects career by opposition. So this on the transit level is tremendously great change time in your life. And of course, Jupiter will be coming into the 1st house as well. And that will signify a time to totally put yourself out there toward all these new goals that you're building. Now, in the progressed, and here's where we get to the that Libra. So Mars and Mercury have already progressed into Libra, and the Sun into Libra. But now, a month and a half ago, the Moon progressed into Libra, getting ready to move forward in the next year. In 2020, will join the Sun. That's your new moon of the soul, the progressed lunation. And this signifies a 30-year cycle, Libran in nature, creativity, harmony, beauty, balance, relationship, and also your role out in the world, what you're learning, what you know, what you're giving to others, very much connected for you to your personal sense of the meaning of life and your level of activism. So this is a very strong energy. I certainly feel like you are well in hand in terms of career and role in the world. But I also feel in terms of relationship that this bodes well for you feeling like you're more aligned with the kind of relationship that you want to be in. Here's the progressed chart as a whole chart, which I would then look at and say, okay, so if we look at the whole thing, and of course the new lunation is in the 8th house, we have, transformational medicine, psychology, deep levels of spirituality, and of course intimate bonding. And Venus, Jupiter in the 7th house in this progressed chart, I feel like relationship is very much slated to deepen in your life. We do see, though, that we've got the square between the Libra planets and the soul's purpose energy out there in the world with your community. So you don't get away from feeling that you have a certain stress inside you between what you want personally in terms of relationship and what your role is out in the world. One of the things that I mentioned in the article I wrote for the OPA Career Astrologer about your chart is that you're part of the millennial generation, and millennials, Pluto in Scorpio. I see your group here to expose the corruption in the world and to be relatively fearless. If you can get over that feeling of wounding that you have sustained trying to do this lifetime after lifetime, you're really here to work hard and very intensely change what needs to be changed as you're coming into your power years. And then, of course, between 1988 and 91, there was the stellium, what we called, I think, the harmonic convergence or something. I think I led a group of people chanting on a mountaintop for that one in 88. Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn were all in Capricorn. And so I see you as part of the subgroup, even though your Saturn has shifted a little bit into Aquarius, but you're still part of that subgroup that is here to infiltrate mainstream world, medicine, government, business, the whole thing, and then change it from the inside out. And the difference for you with Saturn having moved forward into Aquarius is that you are specifically very creative, revolutionary, innovative, and you will make sure that you accomplish those goals. On the relationship level, I also felt the solar arc energy was pretty amazing, because about 3 years ago, solar arc Venus came to the Sun in the 8th house. And to me, that expresses your readiness on a Venusian level to connect with the depths in intimate bonding. And that this is continuing, as you can see, Venus is at 18, almost 19. It's a good 3 more years, Venus transiting across the sun moon. So it's another indication to me that at the same time you're having the new moon of the soul in Libra, that you are also having this powerful solar arc in the 8th house. And I feel like there's partnership energy for you that is very strong at that point in time. In terms of it, this makes me think of what Oner said about you and having children. My take on you and children is that you don't need to have children. That if you wanted to have a child, I believe that you could. I would look at it as Mercury ruling the house of children between Venus and Jupiter, so having a certain level of the positive planets supporting that. But when you have the South Node in Cancer, you have been a mother for lifetimes. You know, like, so it would maybe help the beings that you brought in to give them your special brand of nurturing and healing, but you don't specifically need it for your own growth and evolution. And because you have the moon in the 8th house, I would say that if you were going to have children, you would want to work on emotional, karmic, healing issues before you went down that path, just to clear out old memories about how it could have been a challenge as much as a gift. Now, just again, showing people what I do. So I do most of my reading, like in the moment, looking at the chart. I don't do prep, but I will then look at, transit data and progress data to look at some of the specifics. And that would be how I would approach your chart. Do you have any questions, Melanie, or comments about what I've said?
No, it's just so interesting being on the receiving end, having done a number of readings with people or for people, and that dialogue always being so central to the own evolution of the reading. And I just want to commend all 4 of you for going in very blind to this and offering, a 30-minute piece with no information really. And there was something that resonated for me in each of you, particularly this last one. And I guess due to time, I'll just briefly say that the last 2 or 3 years, there really has been that transformation and bringing up so much of kind of that 8th house energy, that Pluto energy, whether that was Pluto crossing the ascendant, my progressed Saturn stationing direct, my progressed moon was in the 8th house. A lot came up, and there was a lot of pain and a lot of like really deep healing that came through. And the 2 relationships that I mentioned, I feel like those 2 people get a tremendous amount of credit in terms of helping me cultivate my own self and heal so much that I had been holding and was ready to work through, but definitely needed partnership for. And yeah, I'm excited for the chapters that await and feel really grateful to have had this, especially as I enter my Saturn returns, and feel like I could go on for a long time with each of you individually, but I'll kind of pause there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kay. As you can see, this is Kay's website. If you need more information, if you have specific questions about her approach, and you'll obviously read what everyone has written for this particular exercise. And it's very interesting looking back, at the transit for today, that the sun today is right on Melanie's moon.
Yes.
Right? and it's in the 8th house, so we're really analyzing you to bits and hopefully nourishing you as well through that moon channel. And your nodal return, that's also so amazing, because as you can imagine, the charts were selected randomly. Several people submitted their own chart to be analyzed, and we didn't really look at the charts. We just draw the name out of a hat, and synchronicity had it that this happens right as everything's angular for you, and happy birthday.
Thank you. Synchronicity is very intertwined with my whole life. I've always said I follow my feet, and the older I get, the more relevant that is.
So, Kay, any last word from you, if you have questions or last comments?
I guess my question for you, Melanie, would be hearing that you want to go into acupuncture school and develop the healing gifts at that level. Do you have a plan in the back of your mind about how you want to take that into the world, how that relates to your activism?
So much of the different parts about my life are interwoven. And for me, acupuncture and Eastern medicine has been something I've thought about for several years, and has really come to my attention that really is where I find myself home, and where I find my strengths really naturally coming out. I envision a practice that has many different elements woven in. You know, I love that traditional Chinese medicine has a whole branch all about herbs. You know, my background is in botany and in education and working with plants, and this would deepen that. I've always been really interested in the body's systems, and so this brings in that science piece. And then in the last 3 years, as I've really undergone this big transformation, I think anyone in my life would comment on that, both physically and emotionally. Just how I walk in the world now is quite different. So I see that as kind of the more spiritual. So bridging the science and spirituality, I see many ways that different parts of my passions in my life can be woven in, and I'm not totally sure how it'll manifest on the day-to-day, but it definitely feels aligned with my heart and my interests, and stay tuned.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I was really seeing you as, you know, down the road, taking this knowledge that you have out to the world in a much bigger way. That, you know, there's this activation of justice, you know, the intersection of healing and social justice that's really profound in your chart. So thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you for diving in with me today, all four of you. And Maurice, thank you for coordinating this event. It's
so wait, we'll have a time for some sharing. Kay, I'll just ask you to unshare for a moment, and if you can actually maybe. No, let's wait for a moment. So I just want to say, personally, my own experience with this exercise is so wonderful to see such different readings. You know, totally different style. I'm not even talking about the personalities of the different astrologers, but just a technique, on a technique level. And yet, you know, coming to very similar conclusions, and yet highlighting, you know, some different aspects of the chart. If we speak about the timing, you know, Oner and Arielle, and I believe Kay also pointed to the years 31, 33 as being so potent. So we see how the chart kind of reinforces this from so many different angles. And I think that's the purpose of this exercise. I hope everyone here who loves astrology, you know, is drawing something out of this, because I think that there's something to be said about the perfect reading incorporating all four approaches, you know, kind of blending the very technical with the more conversational, and those different techniques about Venus and the minor aspects. So I think we are, as astrologers, very privileged to have such a multi-layered, vast system. And we have so much more to learn, because the cosmos is infinite, and because our own life and psyche is so multi-layered. So once again, gratitude to everyone, gratitude to the audience. And I want to also ask if any of the speakers would like to ask Melanie specific questions, about what you've said, if you need, to validate something or to fine tune something, this can be a good time, for that.
I don't have a question, but I just want to make a quick comment that at the end, Melanie mentioned astrology. Her knowledge of astrology is very advanced. I didn't know what pool of people were chosen. So, and her involvement in acupuncture and so on. So I just want to thank Melanie for sharing all that. It was very confirming for me because those were some of the big themes that I saw. Like I mentioned, it's inevitable she would study astrology. I had no idea when she started talking about progressions and stationary progressed plants and all this. She's already quite advanced. I just wanted to thank her for sharing that. It gave me some insight, and she has training in botany and all this stuff. So, not knowing anything about her, that information was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else? Okay. Maybe, let's just see something. I think we're good. We went a little bit over time, so I don't want to keep everyone forever. And well, even though we could go forever into different layers. So until next time, and we will all get the recording, the whole membership will get the recording, so you'll be able to review these insights, learn more about the techniques. You have access to the speakers. And thank you, Melanie. All the best to you in this next step. Powerful Saturn return. I mean, that's another thing, like your Saturn 0 Aquarius, exactly where the Saturn Jupiter is going to be. You were definitely chosen for this exercise.
Thank you.
So blessings to you on this next step, and we hope to hear from you not only as a client but as an astrologer then.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
All right. Bye bye, everyone.